Hey everybody! So, another quick video to liven your weekend. So, this is in regards to the potato paradox, which I was discussing at the end of the lecture on percentages. Uh, and I left the answer open, and I said I'd get back to it, and I forgot when I recorded the last video lecture. So here I thought I'd give a summary of the paradox all over again because I quite like it. It was actually presented to me by a middle schooler, and I hardly believed him. But he explained it well, and I quite like this paradox. So here we go. We have Farmer Joe. Farmer Joe is a potato farmer, and let's say in one season he yields 100,000 pounds of potatoes, right? So we have Farmer Joe owns a potato farm. This year, he harvests 100,000 pounds of potatoes. Maybe he's not a big time potato farmer. I don't know how many pounds of potatoes one should harvest. But let's say he harvests 100,000 pounds of potatoes. And he's going to bag them up. But as he's bagging them up, he always tests them to make sure that they're not too watery, because sometimes potatoes can accumulate some water if it's been a rainy season and they soak up water. So before he bags them, he measures how much water in each potato. And he's sad because he's had a rainy season, and so he finds that the potatoes are, on average, 99% water and 1% solid potato, whatever that is. All right? But this isn't good, because potatoes are supposed to be 98% water and 2% solid potato. This is too much water. Joe wants 98% water, 2% potato. So what does he do? But he leaves his potatoes out in the sun to dry, like a normal person would. So he leaves his potatoes out in the sun to dry, and he comes back after a day or so, and indeed his potatoes have some of the water has evaporated, and they're now 98% water and 2% potato. So he leaves the potatoes in the sun. And eventually, some water evaporates, and the potatoes reach 98% water. So now he goes back to bag them up, and remember, he started out with 100,000 pounds of potatoes. But now we're going to go back, and he's really sad because what he finds is that the potatoes now weigh 50,000 pounds. He has half as much potatoes and half as much profit to be made. This should surprise you. The fact that they lost 1% of their water weight, and they actually lost 50% of their total weight. This should be surprising. How? So, let's figure it out. How could this be? Well, so let's go and use some math. Okay, so when we had our potatoes, originally, we had 100,000 pounds, and they were 99% water and 1% potato. So what does this mean? We started off with, what's 99% of 100,000? Well, 100,000 times 0.99 is equal to, well, it's going to be 99,000 pounds. And our 1% of potato is going to be just 1,000 pounds, right? 1% of 100,000 is 1,000. Okay, but now, once we go down to 98% water, the trick is that the amount of potato has not changed. So our new formula, instead of just taking off 1% of the total weight, we haven't just lost 1% of the total weight. We haven't even just lost 1% of the total water weight. Because what we have in the end is that now X pounds are going to be equal to, well, so if now the potato, so after drying, that 1,000 pounds of solid potato now makes up 2% of the total weight. And so if we want to find what the total weight is, so then the total weight T is going to be 1,000. So why don't we do it as a ratio, actually? So now, if 1,000 pounds corresponds to 2% of the original weight, why don't we do... So we can think of 2% as like a ratio of like... so that's 2 out of 100, which is the same as 1 out of 50, right? So why don't we do that? 1,000 is 1 of the total thing. And then we'll say that the now... sorry. How do I want to lay this out? Well, if we have 1,000 pounds corresponding to 2% of the total thing, then how much do we want to correspond to the total weight, T, which is 100% of the total thing, right? Do you see what I mean? So now we can multiply... Oops. 100 by 1,000. So we'll get 100,000 pounds is going to be 2 times the new total weight, which means that our total weight is going to be 100,000 pounds divided by 2. And so that's only 50,000 pounds. So now Farmer Joe having lost 1% of the water, has only 50,000 pounds of potato. Lost half his profit. Very sad. So puzzle over this, I guess. Maybe it makes a lot of sense to you right off the bat, but I hardly believed it. It's still, yeah, it's tricky. Okay, so that's all.